Hi, Pam. We're just gonna wait a couple minutes for everyone to join and we can get started. Heather, where's your background?
I'm realizing that's still on from work, but it's nice. This is in Massachusetts. This is central Massachusetts, the ridge that is the Norwottuck Ridge where the New England National Scenic Trail is.
Nice.
Pretty, huh?
Hi, John. You're muted, John.
I realize I have my background from work on too.
John, I think everybody is here. We are down Rachel. She has officially resigned from the CPDC, so everyone else is here.
Well, we are certainly sorry that to see her step down, but understand that, right, she has a lot of other things going on. So great. So we'll start this, call this meeting at CPDC to order. As now is typical, Julie, do you want to start off with the procedures we'll use for this Zoom meeting?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, John. I'm Julie Mercier, Community Development Director for the town of Reading. With us from the town tonight, we have myself, Andrew McNichol, Staff Planner, and Erin Schaefer, Economic Development Director. Thank you for joining us tonight and Happy New Year. This is the CPDC meeting of January 11th, 2021. And so we're hosting this meeting over Zoom. It is also being recorded and broadcast by RCTV. And will be available on the RCTV YouTube channel for anyone who wants to watch it again in a few days. So over Zoom, we just have a few ground rules, and one is that you please remain muted if you're not speaking, and that also that you please not speak unless the chair has acknowledged you. And when you do speak, if you can just state your name and address for our minute taking in the record, that would be very helpful. Typically with these meetings, what happens is the CPDC will review the proposal, ask questions, and then open it up for public comment and discussion. So with that, I think that's all from me. I'll turn it back to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So the first item we have on our agenda is zoning, potential zoning amendment for town meeting related to outdoor commerce dining, programming, or storage. And so this is our CPDC's attempt, along with a lot of help from town staff, to sort of I don't want to say loosen the rules, but tailor the rules in terms of allowing businesses to use their own private property, right, to do outdoor dining or some sort of outdoor commerce. Right, it came about especially because of, right, the pandemic and the preference to be outside, and in some cases the need to be outside. But as we looked at it, it's probably something that we should encourage anyhow. So one important thing to note, this is what we're looking at here is specifically on for rules for private property. There will be a different process that's laid out for public for commerce on public property, streets, parking, taking up parking spaces, that sort of thing. So that ends up needing to be a little bit of a different process. Julie, I don't know, do you want to go do an overview of where we are and what the changes are? Or I see, oh, Mark, maybe do you all need to call to order?
Please, if I could, I'd like
Sure.
to call the select board meeting to order. My apologies for being late, folks. Thank you.
And then also, John, the first thing we should do is read the legal ad, since this is the public hearing for the zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay.
Andrew, can you pull it up?
And then Pam, I think this is you, right?
Yes. Notice is hereby given that under MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Reading Community Planning and Development Commission, CPDC, will hold a public hearing through remote and online measures on Monday, January 11, 2021 at 7:30 to consider the following proposed zoning bylaw amendments in advance of the April 21 annual town meeting. Under Section 2.0 definitions, modify the definition of open storage into a definition of outdoor commerce, dining, programming, or storage. Under Section 4.0 administration, amend subsections 4.6.2 and 4.6.3 to add outdoor commerce, dining, programming, or storage as a trigger for minor site plan review, and to add or modify specific procedures and criteria for approval for applications for outdoor commerce, dining, programming, or storage. And under Section 5.0, use regulations, amend subsection 5.2, 5.3, and 5.6 to add outdoor commerce, dining, programming, or storage as an accessory use allowed in business, industrial, and overlay zoning districts by minor site plan review, and to remove special permit requirements for open storage. Complete drafts of the proposed amendments are available to the public in the Public Services Department by appointment and on the town website the Thursday prior to the hearing date.
Thank you.
No problem.
So John, do you want me to just screen share?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so I'll just screen share it and go through as I normally do from the top. Let me just see something here. Okay, does that look good to everybody? All right. So for those of you who are just joining us tonight, I believe this is the fourth time the CPDC has talked about this, but this is the official public hearing for this amendment. And so it does look a little bit different from the last time the CPDC discussed it, which I think was November 23rd, because it was made based on comments received at that meeting. But I'll just go through from the top like we do with zoning bylaw amendments. Which is to say, generally speaking, when the CPDC is considering making an amendment, we like to see all of the locations in the zoning bylaw that may be impacted. So starting with Section 2, definitions, we did have a definition for open storage in the bylaw. And what you see here in front of you, the bold and underline is what's being added, and the cross out is what would be deleted with this new bylaw. So I know it's a little cumbersome to read this way, but this is the way we typically present it, and it's typically presented at town meeting this way as well. So essentially our definition of open storage, it included some of what we wanted, but not all of what we wanted. And so we wanted to broaden it and clarify it. So what we have ended up with here is outdoor commerce, dining, programming, or storage, which would be the relocation or extension of indoor commerce, dining, programming, or storage to outdoor areas as an accessory use on the same lot as the principal use. So we were thinking about the best, sorry, it just jumped. We were thinking about the best place in the bylaw to have this use, to the best mechanism in which to allow this use. And we landed on the minor site plan review process because it's a non-statutory process. It's fairly flexible in terms of, there's no statutory timeframes attached to it. So while we typically do want to do the proper notification to abutters, it's, we could shorten it to a week notification instead of the 2 weeks required for other things that are tied to a statute. And it's a process the CPDC is familiar with. It's been used many times over the years for various things. So it gives us structure, but also flexibility. So looking at under section 4 site plan review, putting it into the minor site plan review criteria here, I added it to the bottom. So it's just one of the triggers for a minor site plan review process now. Okay, so when talking about the review procedures for applications under outdoor commerce dining program or storage, we thought that in this case, it's like very important to do more than what would typically be required, which would be notification to property owners that abut the property in question, as well as within a 300-foot radius. So, in this case, we would want to also notify other businesses and tenants on the site and in that same radius, so that we're making sure we're getting more than just property owners. So that's how we defined our notification process down here, specific to these applications. And then we did note that that would be at a minimum. So if we're looking at the map and we're saying, well, hey, those businesses across the street, they also rely on this specific parking lot, or the specific, there's also a lot of foot traffic coming from this direction over here, or there's a lot of, interplay between these two areas, we might extend that 300-foot radius if we thought it would be appropriate and helpful to the conversation. So. And I should know, we are working on putting together an application right now that would be specific to these minor site plan review requests for outdoor commerce dining, programming, or storage, which is a mouthful. All right, so scrolling down, in the minor site plan review bylaw, currently we have the allowance for waivers for loading zone requirements and parking requirements. And we had 2 paragraphs that were largely the same, which I just combined into one. They weren't entirely the same though. We allowed the waiver of loading zone in certain areas and the waiver of parking in other areas. And in combining them, we were thinking last time, like, what was the reason that we had this apply to business districts only and not other districts? And I don't know that we ever really came out with an answer to that one, but the basic gist is that we would allow a waiver for parking or loading spaces in any of these districts where this could be proposed, but waivers are not a by right guaranteed kind of thing. They're part of the discussion and the negotiation, and we'd have to really evaluate what kind of impacts that might end up having if that were allowed. So it's in there to be used if it's appropriate. And then we created some separate criteria for approval for this specific use. So these are things, a lot of them were taken from the open storage special permit criteria that already existed in the bylaw. And then we added a bunch more. And these are really the things that, could be, they're like kind of putting some parameters on the use, but also allowing for flexibility, for creativity, and for businesses to come and tell us what it is they think they need to make their business viable and to keep their business going. And then, during that conversation, it could be determined like whether we would want to put limits on them or say, okay, you can do this, but not that. It's just really to allow them to come in with their big ideas and let us kind of figure it out with them. So these criteria, the first one is duration of use. So, what are the hours of operation? What's the seasonality? Like, how long is this going to happen? And would this be wanting to happen beyond COVID and, next year and the years to follow? So site circulation and access. So, just looking at the adequacy of pedestrian, vehicular, and emergency access to and movement through the site. So making sure that, someone's not using up their entire parking lot and like literally a fire truck couldn't get in, or they're blocking a crosswalk or something like that. So parking, availability of and impact of parking, and that one is purposefully left a little bit vague, so that there's not specific requirements on the site or off the site. We just look at the parking in the area and whether we think that there would be suitable parking on the site and in the area for their business to function, as well as the other businesses in the area. Intensification of use. So I don't believe the goal with this is to really allow a business, like let's say a restaurant, for example, to have all the same indoor seating they normally have, and plus a bunch of outdoor seating. It's really more about allowing them to, continue their operations into the outdoor spaces, right? Not necessarily expand or intensify the use, but that's another thing that the CPDC would have to weigh with each application. Structures and furnishings, we would want to know dimensions and methods for securing and storing all the structures and furnishings that are to be used, so that we can make sure they don't trigger any specific building code requirements or that they're safely affixed. Materials and products. So this one is a holdover from the open storage special permit criteria, and it's basically that you can't be storing hazardous materials on your site. So it's a little bit more of a condition than a criteria, but right up front, it's there right up front. So if that's what someone wants to propose, is a bunch of storage of objectionable materials, maybe they wouldn't apply. Lighting, heating, and sound. So this one is, just we'd need details about what kind of lighting, if any, is proposed, whether there are going to be any heating devices or sound generating devices, and whether there's going to be utility extensions required. Setbacks, so we'd look at the proximity of any structures and activities to the property lines. Visual impacts, measures to address the effect of the use, such as plantings, fencing, sculptures, trellises, and artwork on neighbors. And so this is like visual impact, both positive and negative, right? So something that's impactful, that might pique someone's curiosity to visit, but not negatively impactful, that it's going to be like an eyesore for the neighborhood late into the night or something like that. That's probably not a great example. And then signage, if there's any desired temporary signage, we would just want to understand where it's going to go and what the justification for it would be. And then looking at competing uses and neighborhood coordination. So that's like really important. We would want to know that the business that's proposing this outdoor commerce or whatever it may be has given consideration to like how the area is typically used throughout the day and at night, and what the needs of the abutting uses and neighbors are. Since we're all in this, we're not all in the same boat, but we're all in this in some fashion. And then we have a statement here about permit compliance. So essentially this is like if there's a business that's really struggling to comply with any limitations, we want people to come to staff and like try to figure out solutions, and then try to work with us and come back to the CPDC if needed to like talk about like how to go forward in a viable way. But that being said, we would be able to rescind the permit if there were like some real ongoing issues that were just not rectifiable. And this could be a condition in each permit. So it's stated really clearly right up front that this is what our desired outcome is, to work with people and to have things, to have things work, but sometimes that's not always possible. So now we look at section 5, which is the use section of the bylaw. Let me just scroll down. I'm going slow so it doesn't jump. So we went to the open storage use, which is an accessory use listed under the table uses for business and industrial districts. And we just changed that like we did with the definition to outdoor commerce, dining, programming, or storage. And then we note in the table that it would be by minor site plan review in all cases, in all zoning districts, on all business and industrial zoning districts. And then up here in this paragraph where, you know, we explain what these acronyms mean, I added it in because this is the first time we've done this for minor site plan review. And then since the last time the CPDC looked at this, we also thought we should clarify, make very clear that this is also allowed in the downtown smart growth district. There aren't a lot of sites downtown that have private space to use, but there are a few. And we want to make sure that there's no gray area about what the applicability is. And then taking that a step further, we did think about the fact that we have a number of home occupation and special home occupation uses in town. And we went around and around, Andrew and I, we were like, decided that maybe we wouldn't want it to be applicable to those. Those are accessory uses, and it's not really clear whether you can have an accessory use to an accessory use, but we can get into those weeds later. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's a change from last time. And then we added in just an acknowledgement of the fact that we do have businesses in residential districts. We wanted to add in an allowance that they could also, those businesses could also use this by minor site plan review. So to my knowledge, we do not have any businesses in the planned unit development residential or planned residential development, general and municipal zoning districts. So those are a no, but for these areas, I believe we do have businesses. So that's minor site plan review. Same process as stated above. And then we did clarify here under footnote 4 that it's applicable to legally existing businesses and residence districts where the principal use of the site is commercial. And then we put also that it's not applicable to home occupation or special home occupation uses. And that, again, I mentioned could be discussed further. Moving right along, I think we're almost done. So then, since I mentioned that we changed open storage and that's no longer a use that exists because we've modified it, we would take out this criteria for approval for open storage as a special permit, since it's been baked into the minor site plan review process. So I think that's all, and I am happy to take any questions anyone has. Turn it back over to you, John.
Thank you, Julie. That was great. So let's start first with CPDC. Any questions or comments before we open it up?
All right, I'll start. 4.6.3.2, request of printed copies. Should we at this point be asking for electronic copies as well?
We have that also right here, electronic copy.
So I think that, right, the edit here is that we used to require 6 printed copies because, right, 5 for CPDC and 1 for town hall, right, and that was when we used to get those copies, and now we don't, right? We CPDC is all electronic, and so, right, there's still, Julie, I assume that, right, there's still a need for town hall to have some printed copies for your files.
Yes, that's correct.
I apologize, I missed that one electronic copy. 4.6.3.4, permit compliance. I'm not a fan of the word may in this case. The applicant may be required to return to CPDC. I think the applicant should, I won't say required, but should return to the CPDC. It shouldn't be the responsibility of the neighbors impacted to come and complain about somebody who's stepping outside their bounds.
I think the goal here, Tony, was that if it's something small that they can work out at the staff level, that would be the preference of CPDC. I believe this was discussed last time.
How about this? How about making a little bit more active, Tony? I can see what you're saying, and I also do remember the intent of this. That, you know, to me, there's there will be judgment in what constitutes an applicant struggling to comply. What about just changing it to CPDC may require the applicant to return to identify solutions, so that it's, I don't know, we're reserving the right to require them, but if we require them, then they are required to do that.
So it's active on our part
Yeah,
instead of active on their part.
yeah.
I mean, I will defer to the majority, but the maze and the, call it wiggle room that's provided sometimes gets us into more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, I think what we should say here, because the beginning of this says that they are struggling, right? It doesn't say if, it says should. So we're assuming there's a problem. And I think we need to be explicit that they need to propose a solution to staff and may be required to return to CPDC. So the first part of that is to acknowledge that there is a problem. They're going to propose a solution to staff. If it can't get resolved there, then they may be required to come back to CPDC. So do that in less words.
Great.
Because Tony's right. If there is a problem, then they have to fix it.
Agreed.
Okay. Do you guys want us to edit in real time? Because we can pull up the Word version and do that.
Maybe maybe we can keep going, and I don't know if Andrew or Julie, one of you, maybe you can think how that would be worded, so we would, and then come back to it.
Sure, sounds
All right.
good.
Because I'm sure there's other discussion I think we're probably going to have. So.
Yeah.
And 5.3.1, is it 5.3.1? Camera's if I don't think we really should be allowing for minor site plan review if a business is in a residential district. Already there's the issue of you have a business in a residential district, allowing them to start going outside of the building. It's probably going to create more bad will with the neighbors than, I mean, we saw it just with somebody trying to do one small addition by storing it on property and running their business inside a building that wasn't attached. I can't imagine what's going to happen if somebody decides that, well, I need to store all this outside my building, and whether the neighbors can see it or not.
Your point is taken. We do have some businesses on extremely large tracts of land that could have benefited from this last year, such as Meadowbrook Golf Club, and that's a residential zone. Either way, there would be a process with CPDC where you could discuss all those things and put limitations that we could then enforce.
Okay, I think that covers my comments for the document. Other than that, very good work so far.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I guess I would, on your last point, I definitely understand what you're saying. I think that because, right, this is not a, we aren't compelled to approve the minor site plan. Correct, Julie? I mean, it's sort of like a special permit in the fact that if they can't meet the conditions, then we can't approve it, right? Or we wouldn't approve it. We have that potential. Is that the case?
I believe that's correct.
All right.
Or you could very heavily condition something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think we could work those, you know, those issues out. Because there may be some cases where it's fine and appropriate. So. All right, other comments from the board? And no. You're shaking heads. All right. Comments or questions from others? Anyone from the select board or public? Lisa?
I see
Vanessa has a question.
Okay. Vanessa, go ahead.
Vanessa, you're still muted.
Yeah, you were off mute for a second.
Let's try this again.
All right.
Better?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So first, I want to thank you for the decision you came to regarding the requirement to come before CPDC, being contingent on a problem and making that scenario specific as opposed to a requirement. I think this will really help make the process more expeditious if they can work out the issue with the staff. So I did have a question regarding 4.6.3.4, section K. So consideration for how the area is used throughout the day and at night, and accommodations for the needs of neighboring uses. Now, the select board recently saw a situation where there were in fact two abutters with competing interests on public land. My concern with how it's written now is that it's asking an applicant to understand all of the potential implications for their neighbors. Is there a way to, and that I worry that maybe asking a lot of a local business to know how their neighbors use the land, how they use the space. Could we consider perhaps rephrasing that, I worry about the burden this is going to place on someone who may not know.
It's not on them, the burden. That criteria is something that the board or staff would consider. So if the user is just not that savvy with these things, staff and the CPDC and others will bring it to light.
And ideally, we would hear about it through abutters and nearby tenants also telling us.
Okay. Fantastic, then that addresses my concern. The other question I had regarding that is there is a section, I apologize, I don't remember the exact part, Julie, regarding the stamped envelopes in order to communicate with the abutters.
Yeah, so I know you haven't asked your question. This section right here applies to all minor site plan reviews. And so our typical process is that we send up mailing to abutters. So we would do that as well as like an email notification and other types of notification to tenants and other businesses.
So the town sends the letters, not the applicant?
Yes, the town sends the letters. Yes. The applicant gives us the envelopes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's perfect. And then from a practical perspective, I understand this is a bylaw proposed change, and so it's meant to be highly technical in nature. My question goes more to the practical of what is a realistic timeline for how a process like this might unfold. Do we know for other minor site plan reviews, you know, is it a couple of weeks? Is it a month? Like what expectation are we setting from our businesses who might be using this for outdoor dining, for example?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. You know, our typical process now, we have like this whole chart built out. We ask for minor site plan reviews about 3 weeks before a scheduled CPDC meeting. And then that gives us time to look at it and put a legal ad in the paper that prints actually 2 weeks before the meeting. With this, we, you know, like I said, it's non-statutory, so we do have the flexibility to do like a minimum of a 1 week notification. I would say we wouldn't want to get any less than that, just you know, because we want to make sure we're having like a duly run and noted and fair public process. But we could, you know, I would say we could get something in a couple weeks in advance, and that would give us enough time to get a notification in the paper, contact the neighboring businesses and tenants, and do everything that we're saying in the zoning bylaw and get it scheduled for a CPDC meeting. So maybe a 2 week lead time at the minimum. And then with the CPDC, you know, the hope for outcome in my mind would be that it would just be one meeting, which we've seen is typical for other minor site plan reviews the CPDC has looked at. So
it sounds a month, but ballpark.
Yeah.
I have no more questions. This was really helpful. I want to thank CPDC for undergoing these changes. I think it's going to make a big difference for the businesses. And Julie and Andrew, thank you so much for putting this together. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Vanessa.
John, I think Karen has her hand up as well.
Sure, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also agree this was a great presentation with a lot of work put into it. And I'm glad you're moving to electronic documents. Staples won't be happy, but you know they're going to have to get with the times. Also, I appreciate the recognition that as we allow creativity into a process, it's not always going to work out the way planned. And I appreciate the discussion and the concerns that Tony raised and the other commission members input into. You know, I'm thinking of some businesses that we've had ongoing traffic problems with on South Main, and you know, being told there's nothing we can do about it. That's never a good answer. So I appreciate, you know, let's be flexible. If they can't come up with a good solution that is acceptable, then they may or should or shall, but they will be coming back before you all so you can help. I appreciate that. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Karen, for bringing that up. Right, and that's why I was asking what kind of leverage do we have here compared to a typical site plan, where allowing or sort of having that process of requiring folks to come back in if there is an issue, right? Sort of changes the dynamic a little bit.
Absolutely,
because
would.
right, this is right, something that's over top and above sort of what we would typically would typically allow. So hopefully, right, that leads to more of a environment where we don't where we can work together to solve those issues that come up.
Absolutely, thank you.
John, I think I saw Carlos' hand.
All right. Carlo?
Hi, thanks everyone. I just have a question for town staff, either Julie, Andrew, or Aaron. Do we know how many businesses are in a residential zone that this could impact or take advantage of this?
I could probably get you a ballpark, but I'm not going to take a guess right now.
Okay.
But
I understand the concern when it's in a residential neighborhood, but if the applicant follows all the guidelines, I'm hoping that the commission wouldn't impose too strict conditions if they apply within the lines, and because some neighbors complain that doesn't impact the applicant. That's my only concern about the residential residentially zoned businesses, that if they within the guidelines, and if few neighbors complain, that it doesn't hurt them. That's my only concern. I think everything else has been addressed, and I know this has been a lot of work and ongoing, so thank you.
Thank you, Carlo. The way that I see, what we do at CPDC, I think there's very few commercial businesses that don't abut a residential use, whether it's in a residential zone or not. I mean, so right, think about it. There aren't any businesses that don't back up to a home, behind it. I mean, there may be a few, but very few. So we're constantly addressing, those residential impacts, whether it's in a residential sort of a zone or not. So I don't see, honestly, I don't see that much of a difference in Reading between one zone and the next in the way that we look at all the issues, because we have to look at those residential impacts. It's what we do.
That said, that doesn't mean that just because somebody complained that the proposition is viable, right? I mean, a site may have too many conditions that make it not a viable proposition. Sorry, just can't do it.
Yes.
They want to fill up their parking lot with I don't know, 200 tables or something, and it just doesn't work because it messes up the parking. That's too bad.
John, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Following up on Vanessa's question, and I think this is for Julie and Aaron, in terms of the process, I think I was envisioning, and I want to make sure this is right, that when a business has a proposal they want to put together, staff is going to work with them to try to help them structure it so that at the 3 weeks before when they've submitted it, it's not that no one has seen it. Staff's been working with them already. Then it's coming to CPDC to see, if it meets criteria, if it needs any adjustment. So the process, this month process, hopefully they're already on a good path, not a guaranteed path, but a good path.
I would agree that's the desired outcome. I was trying to, our goal between now and town meeting, which is in late April, is actually to find out as however many businesses we can that would want to use this and work with them in the meantime. And with the hope for outcome that this is approved at town meeting, have them queued up for late April, early May CPDC meetings that we have scheduled, kind of get everything really ready. But if there were one to come in after the zoning amendments approved, I was thinking the minimum amount of time, something that we might not be aware of comes in, we could probably accommodate it, having it 2 weeks in advance at a minimum.
Great. Thank you.
So.
Mr. Chairman, one other question. There had been discussion about the select board deferring their authority over public areas to CPDC under this minor site plan review. I don't know if anyone is aware of any changes that should be made before this goes to town meeting, or if we can do what we have now and just take the deferment from the select board.
I don't believe that deferment was granted, Tony.
No, it hasn't even been discussed. Well, it hasn't been given yet. I didn't know if the plan in place was still to do so. And if so, would we have to make any changes before this amendment goes to the town meeting?
There was a meeting, a select board meeting, where it was expressed that we should, right, this is focused on private property, and on the public property, mostly, streets and sidewalks, that keeping that with the select board was a preference, right? Because there's different issues that go on with that. And so my impression, and Mark, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is this is going to stand the way it is, and and the select board will maybe use something similar, but go through a different process for public, proposals of use of public property.
Yeah, I believe that's what we talked about exactly. The private uses are clear through CPDC. And then the question that came up was when it's going to involve sidewalks and then lots of public space, that the select board felt that it needed to weigh in on that. And board members, if you're remembering it differently, if I don't have it right, please chime in, but that's my recollection of our discussion.
No, thank you for clarifying that.
I'm seeing Karen's hand up.
Karen, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Karen.
No, I think that's left from before. I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
And I saw Vanessa's up, but it might have been left over as well. Is that the case?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. No, my question has been addressed.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from anyone else? Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Egan with the Chamber of Commerce in Reading, and I just wanted to applaud these efforts for being so thoughtful and planning ahead so businesses will have more flexibility, this spring and beyond the pandemic to use, adjacent properties as well as their parking lots and parks for recreation and commerce. So I know that this is a tremendous undertaking, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time to do it so thoughtfully and with notice prior to the upcoming town meeting. So really do appreciate it. And it's great to see some new choices for businesses being planned.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely, right. The goal here is for our businesses to succeed. So whatever we can do, yeah, we're happy to do that.
No, it's great. I'm sure this is an enormous amount of work. So thank you all very much for doing it.
Kudos to Andrew and Julie for doing most of the heavy lifting. So. And Erin may have had a piece in that too. I don't want to leave you out, Erin.
Yeah, and just knowing that the town will work with businesses to give them guidance and feedback along the way. I know that means a lot, especially because so many businesses are working harder for less money, for less customers, whatever it might be. So it's great to have staff support, just giving them the guidance to make sure everything's as you'd like it to be prior to the meeting, because waiting a month for a permit can feel very long when you're anxious to, have more restaurant seats or have your fitness class in your parking lot, which is empty at 6 a.m, other than your, fitness clients, etc. So I really do appreciate it. And yeah, and it's been a great team effort.
Thank you. Any other comments? So I think hearing none or seeing no raised hands, Julie, we had the one change that the wording change that we probably need to come back to.
Yeah, Andrew, do you want to have you worked out some wording?
Not to put you on the spot.
I believe we have worked out some wording. Let me just open up the Word doc.
I'll stop my screen share real quick. You can do his. And
let me share it on the screen. So we were talking about here, and just make sure track changes is on. We came up with the language. Pull it up. Came up with language. Wow. believe that might work. It works for you all.
It works for me.
The nodding heads. Nick, yeah, nodding head there. All right.
I think I might make one suggestion that we say instead of submit remedies, because that I think that could be potentially misinterpreted. Maybe say something like propose solutions to staff, and then take the yes, and then I'll give you the rest in a minute. And then I would take it away from the next line. So I would say, and may be required to return to the CPDC to amend the permit. And,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's cleaner.
I like that.
Yeah, that works.
Yep.
And then I did want to just follow up on the home occupation conversation and just make sure everyone agrees that with us that we think this should not apply to home occupations or special home occupations, which is also an accessory use. So.
Yeah, I'll say for me, I have a hard time envisioning what home occupation this would, would be appropriate to request extension of the use, through this.
I do too.
I can't even wrap my head around what home occupation that might apply to appropriately. So, but there may be one, but I can't think of it, and probably my feeling is allowing it may lead to sort of some bizarre requests.
Yeah, I agree with all those statements. It's just we kind of got in the weeds when we were thinking about residential districts, and then we were thinking, oh, there's other, yeah, the rabbit hole.
Yes, yes, I do.
So. We will leave it then. Great.
All right. All right. I'm going to say one last chance for comments, questions or comments on this.
Can I just clarify something for everybody about next steps, John?
Sure, please.
So just for anyone who's joining, who is a business who's maybe interested in using this amendment, the amendment won't be voted on at town meeting until late April. I believe town meeting opens on April 26th. I'm pushing for this zoning amendment to be early on in the town meeting warrant so that we can try to have it done the first night, but that's not really up to me. But if you are a business and you want to work towards this, we are working on a draft application to have ready with the hope and that this will be approved at town meeting. And we will work with you in the meantime to help you get your application ready to come to CPDC in late April after the town meeting vote or early May. We have a couple meetings scheduled right around town meeting to try to help speed things up for businesses that have waited until town meeting. So yeah, please just reach out to me, Julie Mercier, Community Development Director, the town of Reading, and we can start working with you this week to help you get ready. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. And so do we need to make a motion to recommend this to town meeting, or where do I always forget what this process is?
Yeah, so if you feel like you want to close the hearing tonight, you can do that and we can be done and we can get this wrapped up and sent to town council and ready for the warrant. If you'd like to continue the discussion, if you think there's any reason you'd want to talk about it again, we can put it on an upcoming meeting agenda, talk about it again. Usually you guys wait until you're done with the hearing, and then you can make a report to town meeting, basically take a vote to recommend and we'll put that in writing to be reported at town meeting.
All right.
So.
Any thoughts from the board of whether, whether there's a desire to take this up again, whether you think that we should extend the hearing or just move along?
Close it and move along.
That was sort of my thought. Right. We
Yeah.
As Julie mentioned, we've had 4 meetings to discuss this. And certainly there wasn't a whole lot of change from the last one we had.
No, we tightened up the language primarily, and I think we're pretty solid.
Yeah. So with that, I think the next step is to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All right, so go through a roll call and start with Tony.
Yay.
Heather?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
John? Yes. And then, Julie, I'm sorry, I lost you. Do we want to go through the process to recommend this, or does it go to town council first and then come back for another meeting before town meeting? In case
You could recommend.
In case they have any issues.
Yeah, you can recommend it if you want, and then, I mean, that's a really good question, John. They usually don't look at it until pretty close to when it's going in the warrant.
Right.
So you could recommend it today, but you do have a few upcoming meetings. You could recommend it later if you want as well.
Would we, do we ever just recommend it pending town council review? I mean, if anything needs to change upon review, we would consider it then, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could do it that way. I don't want to say anything out loud about them not modifying it that much because back. But I would like to think they wouldn't change it too drastically. That you guys wouldn't want to recommend it. But
Let's not lose track of it. Let's just recommend it now, and then if town council has changes to make, we'll take it up at that time.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
The move that the CPDC recommend language of the zoning amendment changes, let's see, for outdoor commerce, dining, programming, and storage as amended to town meeting.
Second.
All right, roll call. Tony?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
John? Yes. All right.
wonderful.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I don't know if select board, you're going to stick around for our other topics or.
I think I see Carla with a motion.
Thanks, guys. Motion to adjourn the select board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And we'll go into a vote. So Carlo,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Vanessa,
Yes.
and Mark, yes. Select board's adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. 8:30, our next item is a continued public hearing for 40R plan review, 531 Main Street, ACG RE Reading LLC. This application has been requested by the applicant to be continued to the February 8th meeting.
Yeah, we can schedule it at 7:30.
Okay. So
On February 8th.
Yeah, February 8th at 7:30.
Yeah.
Can we move ahead to our Plan 930
As nice as that
agenda
would be,
item?
I don't think that you should do that. We do have a lot of things you can do as filler.
Okay.
You can see the best laid plans, right?
Yeah.
The suggestion worked out perfectly, but yeah, so we do have a lot of minutes, and then we have some priority setting for zoning amendments for November, and a couple updates from staff that we could do in this next hour. And I apologize to the development team for the Grandview Road application, but it's really not proper, I don't think.
Yeah, so for those of you that are on that team, we will not get back to it until 9:30. So, go take a break if you're still engaged. So let's
Want to do minutes? Andrew's saying yes. Let's get him out of there.
Okay, we'll do minutes, and then we'll move on to the zoning. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And let me know if we do need to change course at all, of course. I'll share the 9 minutes on screen is hopefully what you're seeing.
Yes.
These might look familiar to you. You actually previously approved them, but as Julie and I were working for the language proposed tonight, we noticed that the discussion on the 30 New Crossing Road testing tent wasn't included in the minutes. So we went back and added those for the amendment tonight. So if you notice anything else earlier in the document, of course, we can make those changes, but hopefully nothing is needed and we can focus on this last section here.
Yes. If you could find Reading Principal Joe Finnegan's reference and change the spelling from principal to principal.
You would think the principal's daughter in the room would have caught that one.
Sorry, do you know what page that's on?
Look, it was on page
Bottom
1.
of page 1.
Yep.
Oh, page 1. Ah.
Principal, P-A-L.
Yep.
It's also on page 2, bottom.
Is it?
Yep. Third line up.
Good catch.
You just search it,
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Struggling with my new setup here. Office.
Yes, I have another one.
Yep.
On page 5. Search for the word than and change it to then.
I don't think I read this one.
Sales then. Yep. Then should. Yep. And that's all I had. Anybody else?
The section we added is the section at the bottom. I didn't go back and modify the top part that you guys are talking about because you already voted on it. It doesn't matter, but just the new thing for you guys is the 30 New Crossing Road discussion, which kind of led us to where we are with the zoning amendment in a way.
Was there a date set for that, Julie?
For which?
For the COVID testing.
So they were hoping to open in November. And I heard they have opened to at least some capacity, maybe not what they thought they would fully.
Right, because I haven't seen it advertised or anything.
Yeah, I just heard last week, I had heard kind of conflicting things. One that they didn't open or decided not to open, and then one that they did open, but just for a more limited capacity. And that maybe they might pivot to being a vaccination location at some point.
Yeah. Drive-through vaccination then.
But I don't know how fully thought out that one is yet. That's just like word on the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no changes for 9-9.
Nor do I. I'm good.
Neither do I.
All set. Moved that the CPDC approve the minutes of September 9th, 2020 as amended.
Accepted. Approved. Yep.
Seconded.
Second.
Right. All right. So roll call, Tony,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
John, yes.
Second that and move.
I have not reviewed the November 2nd meeting minutes, so let's skip those.
Okay, jump ahead to 11:23.
Was that in the packet?
Should have
Yep.
been.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 11:2 was not, Tony.
Okay.
Sure it was.
It was updated today. It's
Oh.
thrown in there, but we
Okay.
don't have to.
Oh, it's funny. I didn't even see that one. But
So are we doing
23.
11:23?
On page 1, for 136 Haven, the beginning of the second paragraph, it says Mr. Brad Lathan was present on behalf of the application. Do we say application or do we say applicant? Is he there on behalf of the applicant? Does it matter?
I defer to the board.
Applicant.
applicant, I
Yeah, I
think.
think it's applicant.
Minor punctuation change on page 6. After safety codes, there are 2 periods. Oh. It's been changed. Mr. Weston expressed concerns the language of the meeting code requirements is the CPDC does not have jurisdiction over life safety codes, period. It's been changed.
Mine has fun.
Good. That was my only change there.
Jump to page 2. Yes. As I'm reading this sentence here on page 2, the 16 square feet in area in compliance with the business B zoning requirement, that 16 square feet is the design guideline requirement, not the zoning requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Well, while you're on page 2, first paragraph in the middle, if the overlay bylaw does not account for signage than the, should be then the.
Sorry, looking in the middle.
And I'm done with the notes from 11:23.
I have no further comments either.
All right.
No, no, do I.
All set. Move that the CPDC approve the minutes from 11/23/2020 as amended.
I'll second.
All right, for a roll call, Tony,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Pam? Yes. Nick?
Yes.
John, yes.
Okay, thank you all. If we want to keep chugging along right to the 12:14 minutes. Share those on the screen.
So it says that Reed Hayes was a sign mechanic present on behalf of Ace Flats sign application. Did he really speak
Yes,
on? All right.
Did.
yes.
He did, but we should restate this to say something like he offered his opinion that, because he's not involved in the,
Right.
and he stated that as well, right? Somehow make it clear that he was just offering an opinion.
Yeah, he kind of offered his expertise. He was really
Expertise, there you
quite
go,
helpful.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Okay.
somehow that he's not related to the, exactly, there you go. When you write these and you're listening to the recording, so you put these in the order that they come up in the meeting?
Do.
Okay. It just seems to be bouncing around, and I'm just wondering if we really talked that way. You know, we ask for the definition, and we talk about something else, then we go back to the definition, talk about something else.
For this particular one, it was a very disjointed conversation, so that wouldn't shock me.
I do remember we had to kind of scratch our heads over what is this?
We were all
We
over
know
the
that's
place,
not
yeah.
what you intended, but that's what it is. So how do we deal with this?
On page 5,
Yep.
third paragraph, last sentence, he stated that the southern curb cut will. You separate cut and will.
Page 8, second paragraph, second to last line. Mr. Safina opined that bait traps should not be used. Bait in this case is spelled B-A-T-I.
Okay.
Page 10, third paragraph. I'm sorry, second paragraph. Mr. Keong Yu of stated he lives to the east. Is that because you don't have an address?
That is correct. I couldn't get the clear definition from the recording. It sounded like he said Main Street, but that didn't make any sense to me. So
Yes. Wouldn't it have been on Main Street because he lived back behind that other building?
It's on Main Street. Yep.
okay, it is Main Street.
Yep.
And I'm a little bit further down, a little niggly thing, the fourth paragraph from the bottom on page 10, the paragraph that begins with Mr. Bob Cusolito. Second to the last line, it says existing rights of ways with an apostrophe. I don't think that should have an apostrophe. That took a long
Right of ways. Yep.
little thing.
That's right.
I don't have any other comments.
Neither do I. I'm good.
Nope, I'm done.
Same here.
All right. Same here. Anyone with a motion?
I closed my copy, so I don't have the date.
About 14.
Move that the CPDC approve the minutes from December 14th as amended.
Second.
All right, roll call. We'll start with Heather. I think that was a yes.
Oh, yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Nick? That was a yes as well. Tony?
Yes.
John, yes. All right.
Thank you all.
What to next, Julie? Do you want to talk about the stormwater, or do you want to talk about priorities?
I think since Brian, first of all, town engineer is here, we should talk about the stormwater bylaw.
Okay.
We don't keep them after too long.
Yeah, I agree.
Andrew, do you want to do the screen share or do you want me to do it?
If you could do it, that would be a help at the moment.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Ryan, can you give us a signal that you're there?
I'm here.
Just checking. So first I'll screen share maybe the email from town council that summarizes what's changed. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And just really quick for everybody, this is a general bylaw update to align it with the MS4 permit that just was amended. Can you all see it? All right, so this is the, I'll let Ryan take over since he's the expert.
One of the tasks that the MS4 permit requires municipalities to do was to establish a bylaw, and in doing so, in I believe year 2 or year 3, we have to update that bylaw for changes that the MS4 permit made, and we need to reflect those. So town council's gone through and made those changes to the existing bylaw that we have. And just going through some of these, there's some remove exemptions that they go through. There's some definitional changes that they make. There's more requirement for incorporating low impact development, which we already try to do. This just makes it more formalized. Again, one of the other things that they go through and establish here too are requirements. This is probably the biggest thing. They establish requirements for any changes that we want to make for rainfall frequencies and data. This is an important one because we're trying to establish continuity for all review, not just for CPDC and engineering, but also with conservation. So this is the first step for that. Again, like Julie had mentioned, this is just a general bylaw. Really what has more teeth is the regulations that will follow this. Subsequently will be changed. Town council is in the process of doing that now. I expect to see something from them soon. Town council also indicated that they will be sharing a memo to the board or to the commission, basically explaining probably more legal detail on why these changes needed to be made and what they really do mean. I think that's probably about it. I mean, I can go, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
So Ryan, I guess the thing that jumped out to me was the change in exemptions that I don't, yeah, removing the exemption for projects permitted under the Wetlands Protection Act. Right. So my understanding, right, those are the projects that go to the Conservation Commission. And I'm just trying to think through what that change in exemption means for us, because, you know, as you know, we usually defer to them being the Conservation Commission, and it's just double the effort for everyone.
So I you know, I wish this was one of the things where town council was available to answer these questions, because these exemption, the issue is with particularly the Wetlands Protection Act is that it does align with the Massachusetts stormwater standards, which unfortunately have not been updated to reflect the MS4 permit. And I believe that's where that removing exemption comes from. I may have an actual more in-depth detail on that from town council, but there will be a memo coming out that will lay out these explanations probably in more detail. And if we do have more questions, we can ask those in more specific manner, so town council can actually give you your exact answer that you're looking for, and maybe there's an unintended consequence there that we or town council didn't think about. So that'll be important to know, and I can reach out to Rebecca Lacey, who is the one that was drafting up these changes, to ask her that question. But I believe that's where why that specific change was made, because it does not align with the actual stormwater bylaw, the actual MS4 bylaw, because it sort of is undermined by these stormwater standards, which have not been updated. We don't know when they're going to be updated. DEP says they'll be updated soon, but we haven't seen that change.
Ryan, do you know, practically speaking, if the Conservation Commission is already requiring applicants to meet the MS4 permit? Because my memory is that in our meetings with applicants, we typically for, I think, for about 4 years now, which would match up with this 2016 MS4 permit, saying you need to meet the new MS4 permit.
Yeah, and so I've been trying to drive that home because there is this misalignment, okay, and they are required to meet the MS4 permit, and so it is confusing, and I do meet on a regular basis with different collaboratives, and you know we are lucky enough to have Newt Tedder in the room, who's the EPA. He's the author of this region's permit. And we explained to them that this is very difficult because a lot of the engineers that I deal with, some of them don't even know really what the MS4 is because they don't have to deal with it on a municipal level. So that's why I always try to drive home that this is great that you hit the Massachusetts stormwater standards, but you really have to hit the MS4 permit standards too. And so that's probably, that's why I think the MS4 permit and why in particular changing this bylaw is probably very important for us to do. And then the subsequent change to the regulations, the erosion control regulations that fall underneath Cpdc as well, will change to reflect those standards. That'd be the guidance document to use.
I guess what I'm wondering is if, practically speaking, or the Conservation Commission and Town Engineering Division are already requiring these developments to meet the MS4 permit, then do we need to remove this exemption and just like continue doing what we're doing, and then in a couple of years it'll all catch up and we'll all be in line?
I mean, it's a great question. To be honest with you, I don't know if there's a legal answer that there's a reason why that exemption was placed in there. I know the town council has been writing these for several communities, and maybe there's a reason why they pulled this exemption, but I'll reach out to Rebecca Lacey in the morning and I'll fire off that question that asks specifically why that exemption, why we're removing that exemption, and if there's any unintended consequences, and I'll also try to relay some of your concerns.
Great. And
yeah, and right, and the concern, just to be clear, right, the concern is, you know, having applicants do either things twice or having you know, analyses twice, right, or having them have to come to us for this because when they didn't, you know, having more meetings and more approval process than we would have in the past just because of this change.
Sure. I'll reach out and definitely ask that question. Right. And again, from my conversations, I believe it's because the Massachusetts stormwater standards are not in line with the MS4 permit standards. And until those align, that's my understanding of why that removal of the exemptions there. Because if they're not meeting them in the Wetlands Protection Act, then they're not really meeting your guidelines when they come to you. So, but that doesn't mean that we can't make that change across the board. So that'd be something else that I'd be interested to have that conversation with town council.
Yep.
And again, a lot of these other changes are really pretty self-explanatory. I was very happy to see the one changing for the rainfall frequencies. I think we had a lot of discussion on that, and this is a great opportunity for us to change those, and it'll give the power to change them in the regulations as we see fit, depending on how frequent those change. And again, that'd be something that we'd be looking across the board straight through to conservation, that we make sure we use the same rainfall data.
Questions from anyone else? No. All right. I think that's all good, right?
Yeah, it sounds like we'll get more information in an upcoming meeting, so we can talk.
All right.
and closer to town meeting.
All right.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
No problem.
What do we have that we can do in 10 minutes?
Probably
Can we
not.
actually can we take a break before the next
Sure,
one?
yeah, that's a good idea. Yep. 5-minute break?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
So 9:25, we'll be back.
Are we on the record still?
We're just on a break right now, Adam. They're going to be back at 9:25, and then we'll take up your application at 9:30.
Just bravo, the amount of work that goes into this. I'm new to this. It's just like, it's funny to see just the all the effort that goes into each of these town meetings. So bravo, that's it. I'll go back.
We tried to plan, like, we had this so organized that it was going to work out great, and then our middle applicant decided to continue, giving us a big gap in our agenda. So
I've been getting work done.
that's great. Me too.
All right, I think, yep. We're all back. And then Julie, before we move on to this next applicant, can you just give us an overview of what else we have on the agenda to address? Right, I see you have the zoning priorities up there, but you're on mute.
I didn't realize I had them on the screen.
Oh.
I just, yeah, that's fine. When we can talk about them after if you want. I'll just say really quick, we were thinking that if there's time after this, we might just talk really quickly about what zoning articles we might want to take to November 2021 town meeting, if any.
Okay, and that, right, that is that it? Is that the only other topic of discussion?
No, sorry. And then I should just make a quick plug that there's an open space and recreation plan update public meeting on Monday, February 1st. And I believe that's scheduled for either 6:30 or 7 p.m. So that'll be an evening session done virtually and run and led by the consultant we're working with at Horsley Witten. So please let all your friends and neighbors know and join us.
Great.
Andrew, do you have any updates to give real quick since we have just a couple more minutes? Is there anything you can think of?
Sorry, not off the top of my head that I can think of.
Oh, I did think of one. So Postmark is working towards getting occupancies last week and this week. So that building is going to start to fill up with its residential owners. So that's good.
That is good.
So they've gotten their occupancy permits?
They have some.
Okay.
I believe they're going to get, they're in the process of getting the rest.
Okay, and I also wanted to mention that the project that was the gas station still has its temporary signage flying. Needs to come down.
The one on Main Street, Rise 475?
Yes. Yep. It has banners that are hanging down the length of the building that I don't think we permitted. And now some of them have come free, so they're kind of hanging badly.
Yeah, I did notice that the other day, actually.
Yep.
Thanks, Pam.
No problem.
And then, right, lots of other construction happening around town, right, with many of the
40Rs.
40Rs and
Yeah.
and the one down on, even the one down on Main Street, further down on Main Street.
Oh, right.
I forget what number
They
that
have
is.
their footings in.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
And I also wanted to mention that the property that was the old Rite Aid, that was the Reading Municipal Building, has changed hands yet again. And they've looked for demolition permits. Did you hear that?
Yeah, there will be a demolition delay process with the Reading Historical Commission in the upcoming months. Beyond that, I have no further information.
Is that the one down on Haven Street that used to be a Rite Aid?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Across from the train station,
Yeah,
Yep.
yes.
sort of. Yeah.
Behind the old black building.
Yeah. All right. I think I have 9:30, so I think we can proceed
Right.
with a continued public hearing for a definitive subdivision application at Grandview Road.
So, John, there are a few people here from the development team. I see
Okay.
Giovanni Federa, Adam Goncalves. I thought I had Mike on here as well. And then I believe the property owner is with us as well.
I'm here. Hello.
Great.
Great. Who wants to start off on sort of where we left off and the changes that were made? If I recall correctly, where we left last time is that you all, the developer had provided a plan which addressed some of the comments by the town engineer Ryan, but Ryan had not had a chance to review that yet. So I don't know, Ryan, I don't know if you want to go in terms of your review, or we also were submitted a document that sort of went through each of Ryan's comments and those responses. So I don't know who wants to go. Giovanni, maybe that's you on some of the changes that were made or comments that were addressed. That's where I would start.
Sure, absolutely. Giovanni Federa with Federa Engineering. I will share my screen. Let's see, where are we? So the first meeting, previous meeting, Ryan did have the comments of the proof plan and that it needed to be revised. So we did do that, and the comments came back as that the new proof plan was satisfactory. Also, stormwater design, we had to adjust the intensity values, and we did that, submitted the new stormwater report, and that was satisfactory, and it did increase. Before we had a 72 chamber system, it increased it to I think it was 105 chamber system. So that's all within a drainage easement within lots 2 and 3. All stormwater runoff from the property, and the new impervious area is directed there. A couple other comments were trees to be field located within the town-owned property, which is about here. So we had our surveyor go out there and field locate the trees that will be removed, and for that they would need to be approved by the tree warden and replanted by the tree warden. So I put maples to be replanted. I figured those would be a nice tree, but as the tree warden would need to approve that. And other revisions were kind of just adding comments to the plans, just kind of things to do before construction starts, things like that. So we did prove the phosphorus removal of stormwater was sufficient for the stormwater runoff. But other than that, there really weren't too many changes. I did add, or I think it might have been there in the first submittal, but there no parking on this side of the street, which is on the the west side of the street,
Right.
so kind of along here. So we would restrict parking from on that side just because it's a 25-foot width road, you know, and so that was good. But yeah, there weren't really too many other revisions other than some of the comments, and I'm sure if you went through the comment response letter, you can see all the revisions. But we will be submitting to conservation this week. So I talked to Chuck Tironi, and he said that we will submit an RDA instead of a notice of intent. And he wanted to make sure that that was clear. And so we should be having the meeting probably within the month or so once we submit. You know, very minimal disturbance within the buffer zone and back here, but that will be addressed at the conservation meeting, obviously. And yeah, there was another comment about Ryan mentioning probably looking into removing this access easement for lot 4 by placing the driveway down here and within the right of way. But, you know, we walked the site that it seems that there was potential, you know, ledge within the hillside. And this is all the hillside. So we want to minimize ledge excavation. And I thought shifting the driveway right here with the easement was actually a more beneficial layout, especially because it creates this snow storage area right here. So yeah, I mean, these are the changes for the most part. And, you know, if Adam wants to add something, or if board members want to discuss, you know, we're here to discuss further.
Sure, great. I'm going to ask Ryan. Ryan, did you? Sorry, I think we saw a response and that you had reviewed these and that was you didn't have any objections or any major issues. Although I can't swear that I saw that. I might have imagined that.
Oh, you didn't imagine it.
Okay.
The two big pieces that I was looking at was the proof plan that had to be adjusted because it didn't meet the design criteria appropriately, and the stormwater, which, just to be clear, meets the MS4 permit guidelines and regulations. So those have been changed. They're satisfactory. They use the correct rainfall intensity. So we were fine with those changes.
Great, thank you. So I guess two questions that I have is the fact that the you're going to file an RDA with Conservation Commission. Does that mean that there's some question about the extent or the limits of that wetland area?
Yeah, as long as we stay within what's shown on the plan, right at the 75-foot wetland buffer, we'll have it staked off with a straw wattle and silt fence, so no sediment goes into the wetland. But the way that it's designed, where eventually stormwater will build up in that chamber that's located within the easement, and if it does start to overflow, it will overflow downwards into that area, and it's all clean water, and it's a preferred method. But it's a preferred layout to have the stormwater directed in that direction. Disturbance will be right where this line is, that limit. So we won't go any further than that.
And then my other question, drawing a blank. Yeah, it'll come back. Does any of the other board members have questions or comments?
I've got a question. Currently, this is a gravel or dirt road, this extension off Grandview?
It's undeveloped right now.
It's, sorry,
It's undeveloped. So there's no,
undeveloped.
yeah, there's no road right there.
No, I understand that, but is there currently a road here? I'm looking for the driveway into the existing building and not knowing where that is. Do you show?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. So this
there.
right here is the driveway.
Okay, okay, that's, all right. So is the plan to get all of the sewer pipeline, all of that done, underground electrical done before you surface this road?
Yes.
Or is this, it is, okay,
Yes.
that's fine. Good. Okay.
And there was another comment at the last board meeting, and I just wanted to make it clear. It was questioned about who would maintain the drainage easement, and it would be lots 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was my other my other question about the slope easement, and right. I assume that's where these trees are planted. The slope easement. That's on town property, right? And Ryan, we're sort of all good with that.
Yes. To be honest with you, I don't know if that has to go in front of the select board to give an easement for them to do the grading on the slope. Other than that, I was fine with what was proposed here. It certainly makes a lot more sense than having a retaining wall. And just to be clear, any town trees have to go through the proper process to be removed, and that's through the tree warden. So it may require a public hearing before they're even touched.
Okay. It's good to know. Other questions or comments from the board?
You said that the drainage easement would be maintained by lots 2, 3, and 4. What about the rest of the roadway? Obviously, at 25 feet, the town won't take it as a public way. So I assume it'll be just 2, 3, and 4. And will the buyers of those properties understand that this road will not be maintained by the town?
Yeah, so it's proposed as a private road, so town will not have responsibility of maintaining it. There'll have to be some homeowners association outlining the maintenance for the homeowners and whatnot, but that will be addressed.
We'll cover that with covenants at that time, so that all parties are aware.
Ryan, is that typically how this works?
Yes and no, it can go both ways. The subdivision can manage their own stormwater. Water and sewer are public utilities, so we do ask for easements through the roadway so we can maintain the water and sewer. But as far as drainage is concerned, it can, as long as they're put it in their documents and they have a homeowners association and they're aware of it, then that's fine.
And just for clarification purposes, because I know the neighbors mentioned this previously, is there a known association or covenants for the neighbors on Cold Spring and Grandview? Because they had mentioned road conditions over there. Just curious. You guys know?
I'm not aware of any.
Are those private roads, or have those been accepted by the town, Ryan?
Oof, you had to ask me that question.
I'm sorry.
I was just thinking, John, whether or not those were accepted or not. I believe I'd have to look that up briefly. If you want to give me a couple minutes, I can look it up for you.
Sure.
I believe it was a private way, but I'll let Ryan confirm.
My memory from our discussions, Ryan, is that Cold Spring Road is also private.
I believe so too. I just, I'm lacking that concentration to give you a 100% answer, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Cold Spring Road not a paved road? Is it a gravel road?
Paved.
Okay.
It's portions of it are paved.
It's paved where on this plan you see it as gray. You know, a little
Yeah,
shade
yeah.
of gray.
Okay, I see. Because I remember from the last meeting, somebody, one of the residents of that existing neighborhood asking about impacts that there might be during construction to that road, and I think I didn't fully appreciate that that may be privately maintained. So I guess, what happens if there are impacts from construction to a road that those neighbors are then responsible for maintaining?
I don't want to speak for Ryan, but since he's looking something else up, he and I talked about this after the last hearing, and he indicated that the person who damages the roadway is usually responsible. And then there was a comment made about if a roadway is damaged by just like general regular truck traffic, then probably that means the road needed repairs anyway. But if there's like some serious damage done from some some incredible situation, then that would be.
Yeah, exactly. And that same reasoning goes towards a at least a public way.
That was our understanding as well. We don't anticipate causing any damage beyond normal truck traffic.
We won't be mediating that, so I suggest you document all the conditions.
Good idea.
Yeah.
We'll do some photos and videos.
Yeah, we're not doing any more of this private dispute stuff.
Yeah.
Now we'll get a pre-existing condition. I think it's a smart idea. That's why I was asking about if there's any other associations currently that you're aware of, because since this has been apparently a private road since 1911, I don't know what work's been done.
Other questions from the board? No. Questions from the public? Or some of the neighbors?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
Can you state your name and address for the
Can you hear
record,
me?
please?
Yes, Angelo Salamone, 45 Beacon Street. I just want to commend the superior design. I think all you professionals can clearly see the evolution of it and the hard work that Gio put into it, that this is far superior to anything else they had thought of previous to this. He put a lot of hard work into it, but he really came up with a superior design. I don't think it's a secret, but I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Well,
Angelo, just to be on the record, this is your project as well, correct?
no,
No?
no, this project here,
Yeah,
no.
I'm sorry. I thought it was for Angelo's, was at the top of the list.
My son is involved.
Oh, it's your son's project.
Yeah, he's involved in it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments, questions? Not hearing any. So Julie or Ryan, I guess, what's the process here, right? I'm not seeing any significant issues or that need to be addressed, although, right, they do need to go to the Conservation Commission still, right? And then subdivision process is sort of, right, it's a two-step, right? Isn't it a two-step process, sort of preliminary and final? And so, yeah, what's the best approach here, do you think?
So I want to clarify with Giovanni that, so the RDA, the request for determination of applicability with the Conservation Commission, is that for the whole subdivision tract? Or is that just for the 2 lots where you're proposing work within the 100-foot buffer? Maybe it's just 1 lot, actually. No, it's 2. And is that something that you're planning on? I just want to understand that a little bit better. Like the wetland delineation is itself not in question. Am I correct about that? Giovanni?
You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah. So it's just the 2 lots right here. Any work that's within the wetland buffer, as you can see, the line is right there. The wetlands were delineated, I think it was 6 months ago or so, so they're valid. But yeah, I talked to Chuck and he said that this is more of an RDA than it is a notice of intent. So that was enough for me to say, that's fine with me. I'll submit an RDA.
That rendering you brought up.
Yes.
I don't know how accurate that is. It looks like there's a lot of plantings on top of your drainage system.
Yeah, it's just a pretty picture. I just wanted to show it, just
I know,
how it
but
works.
it's a little deceptive as to how much screening there's going to be on that east side.
Yeah, I'll just close it down now.
Yeah.
Right, help me understand, will it basically be open on that east side above the stormwater drainage structure, that whole system?
So the tree limit is going to be this line right here. It's kind of like that. That's the limit of tree disturbance. So there's not going to be trees like what it shows in the rendering. It's, all this is going to be grass. And there can't be any trees, obviously, on top of the infiltration system.
Yeah, just if you use that as a sales picture, the residents are going to start saying, "Oh, this is not what we thought it was going to be."
Yeah.
And again,
This beautiful canopy.
heard that before, so.
You were using Heather's background.
So that the tree cutting will really go in that area right up to the property line.
Yes.
And then for full disclosure here, and it's not on the plan that's here, but that the house or the structure that is towards the back line, back property line, it's on one of those four parcels, but I don't recall which. Do you know? Probably. Right, the front of the parcel is the
it looks like lot 3.
Right, lot 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that structure is, if it's a dwelling or if it's a shed, but
I think it's a dwelling. I think we heard last time somebody lives there.
okay.
Yeah, that was the gentleman that you guys were quoting, that you weren't sure on the east side, but it didn't seem like, I believe that was a church structure, and that was I didn't realize that was a residential dwelling where it could be legally put there, but that was just.
It's a residence.
Yeah, it's a residence.
Legal residence?
What's the house in front then?
That's the church.
The church.
And then there's a dwelling back
rectory?
behind it.
Is it a rectory then, or what is it?
We don't know. He did not say that he was the minister.
Yeah, he said he lived there. That's why.
That's
I
all he
wasn't sure.
said.
The setbacks didn't seem to make sense.
So I guess, typically we want to keep things open until after the Conservation Commission has, gone through the Conservation Commission. The fact that Chuck is suggesting that you just go through a RDA process sort of indicates that, to me at least, that there's it doesn't really think that there's much of a process or a long process there. So I don't know.
I talked to Chuck, and
proceed.
After talking to Chuck, he did even say that this is, relatively minor in nature for the work that's being done in the buffer zone. So.
And when is that? Do you have that scheduled yet?
Not yet. I'm hoping to have that within, this month or so, within a month or so, yeah.
So I'm gonna, I guess, Julie, does this make sense? I'm gonna suggest that we continue it until after that meeting. Not that the next meeting that we have on this, I would expect that it wouldn't be very substantive, but just to make sure that if something does come up unknown in the conservation meeting, that we still have the ability to address it.
Yeah, better safe than sorry.
And it doesn't sound like since you don't have that scheduled yet, if we get you on our next meeting, it shouldn't delay you.
Would it
you'd
be
still be
possible,
in that time frame anyhow.
would it be possible to get an approval subject to?
Well, see, the problem that we've run across if we do that is that then if they do something where we need to then go back and change it, then we actually need to start over again, and it delays you even further, even if it's just a minor. Even if it's just something minor. So that's what we sort of lesson learned, that it as long as it doesn't look like it's going to change the schedule all that much, that it's safer to keep this open so that we can.
We're in there. I'm just looking at.
So that we can keep so we can address it if something comes up.
John, I think really quick we did have a hand raised from someone on the call who's known as Dad. I didn't know if they had a question. We wanted to.
Oh, hi. That was us. That was my husband's name there.
Sure.
We're Grandview Road residents, and I think I've answered the question by looking further at your map. But we are 10 Grandview Road, and we're just curious, what is this extension of Grandview Road? Will it be Grandview Road, this new private way?
Would it be called Grandview Road?
Yes.
That's a good question. So I do know that they've proposed the name to be called Penny Lane. This portion of it. I guess no problem with the name. It doesn't matter to me. But it to me, and there is likely a concern by the fire department to have 3 names of the same road or 4 names of the same road, right, all coming off a ridge road here. And whether that leads to confusion. The process for approving road names, I think that goes through the select board. Is that right, Ryan, Julie?
Yeah. Well, there's a process that it goes
process,
through,
yeah.
where engineering and public safety will go through and look at whether or not it sounds similar to another road, if there's going to be an issue with that, same concern that you just brought up. And then at that point, I had the same conversation with Julie. I'm going to have to double check to make sure whether or not that does go to select board, given that it is a private way. It may still go through the select board to name, but I need to double check that.
So the short answer to your question is there's been
In discussion.
yeah, there's been another proposal to call this portion of the road Penny Lane. Where
Okay.
it's right. I think there's still some discussion that needs to be had on whether that's whether that would be accepted or not.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I think did I miss anyone else? I just want to.
I apologize. I'm having trouble finding a raise hand function here.
Oh, no problem.
I'm Susan Coram. I live at 31 Ridge Road. I was going to have a question about the cost and the obligation to supply the O&M manuals for the recharge system each year, but I think that was probably answered by the idea of the homeowners association that came up earlier about snow removal. So, all right, so I think that would just be a concern that'll be addressed that way. Did Mr. Percival find whether Cold Spring and Grandview are private ways or town roads?
They are private.
Private, okay.
All of Cold Spring was private. That I was just checking to make sure all of it was. It is.
Okay. Thank you for checking that.
And then Ryan, is Ridge, is that public or private?
I believe Ridge Road is public. I just had it up and I closed it, so it just.
Yeah, because that connects to Maine.
Yeah, Ridge Road is public. I should have known that because we paved a portion of it a few years ago.
All right, Susan, does that answer? Are you good?
Yeah,
yes?
that's it.
All right. So I think where we left it, I think where we're going to leave it is we're going to continue this to our next meeting.
I would say, like from a scheduling standpoint, if they're still looking to file with conservation, then Giovanni, feel free to chime in. I think there usually is about a 2-week lead time for a filing, and they have a meeting they have a meeting this Wednesday, but then their next meeting after that is January 27th. I don't know if you could get on that one or not. But I'm thinking we might want to push this to one of our February meetings just to give them time to actually go to conservation.
Right.
Okay.
That sound good?
Yep.
So February 8th or February 22nd.
We have a meeting set for the 22nd?
Yes. Yeah, all of those tentative meetings are probably going to be needed. So just
okay.
You have nothing else to do, count on.
So let's schedule this for the February 8th, and then if you need more time, then we can go from there.
That works.
Thank you.
Time.
I would say 8:30.
Move that the CPDC continue the public hearing for Penny Lane subdivision to February 8th at 8:30.
Second.
All right, so roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
John? Yes. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time tonight.
All right. All right. Next item, as Julie had mentioned, right, going over the
Zoning updates.
potential,
zoning.
Yeah, so I'll screen share real quick, and my intent with this, and also springing on you at the last minute today, is not to have a huge time-consuming conversation late in the evening, as zoning conversations often go. But I did want to just get like a quick bit of input from you, since we are constantly hearing about things we could be doing better, differently. Like we were working on some things before the pandemic that we might want to bring up, and then we had some instructional motions. I just want to try to get some feedback from you as soon as possible about what you guys want to see for priorities for zoning for a November town meeting. And so really quick, I'll just go through. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but there were 2 instructional motions, November 2020 town meeting. So one was about the downtown smart growth district and looking at lot coverage. I would just like, basically, this is the instructional motion language here in caps, and then I have my recommendation below. And so that's something, we know there's potentially a need for review of a few different aspects of that bylaw. And I would just make the plug for trying to do them all at the same time, so we don't end up with unintended consequences, and we're really thinking more about, like, holistically about what it is that we want to achieve in that district.
Quick question, Julie, what is a pocket park?
Pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's so small you can fit it in your pocket. No.
That's why I'm asking.
Small kind of like infill kind of green space that maybe has a bench or a tree or a little bit of respite in a sea of pavement and vertical construction. Does that sound good, Heather? Yep. I should let Heather do it.
Like a little bit of green, right?
A little bit of green, yes. But do we know its size? 10 by 10?
I'm not
10 by 2?
I'm not a huge fan of the term because, I also think because it's open to interpretation. I think, but I also think of it as not like, a park size, a block size park, but something
Right.
something where there's not a whole lot of green in place to, yeah.
And I think the definition of it changes by the context, right?
Yeah.
So a pocket park in, Oklahoma may be very different than a pocket park in downtown Reading or downtown Boston, right?
A pocket park out here in the Connecticut River Valley is different from.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
So I think in the context of downtown Reading, we're talking about a little spot that
a bench with a tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
I would say that the space that's being created in Postmark, right in the courtyard of the Postmark building is probably what people have in mind for when they're talking about pocket parks, or right, the one that comes to mind that actually exists is there the little green space in the next to
Christopher's
Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh yeah.
Jimbo's roast beef. There's a little place there off of Main Street that's sort of like in the middle of a triangle, but it is a park. There's a couple of benches in there. Okay. Every once in a while, you see someone hanging out there and a dog and whatever. So
okay,
small.
And I'll just throw in there that I think the thing that is oftentimes interesting to think about, and this is probably why I offered to help out with the open space and recreation plan, is seeking opportunities to connect those little places through streetscape or through additional pocket parks. So you don't just have all these disparate little places, but seeking ways to connect them up.
Okay, thank you, one and all.
So I think what I'll do, unless you guys object, is just go through them all and then you can see
Yep.
what all on the table and go from there. So then the second instructional motion was about short-term rentals and the need for, like, you know, the select board, CPDC, and Board of Health to kind of put together some rules and regulations related to them. Given that that's like not just involving you guys in town meeting, I thought what we can do is we can prepare for that conversation by looking at ways in which we might look to regulate these in zoning and providing, like we do with many things, like providing different options for how to move forward depending on where the conversation leads us. But I'm not necessarily sure that that's a conversation you guys need to lead, but we can definitely provide information to be prepared for when that comes up. And then the things that you were working on before the pandemic hit and we pulled in the reins a bit, that enormous undertaking of the use table and the definitions, and, you know, just rearranging use categories, redefining uses, adding uses, removing uses, rethinking what's allowed where, all that. The tricky thing there was that when we looked at doing it just like surgical fixes, it was really hard because everything's like interwoven, and if we fix this, it messes it up over here if we don't fix that. And so we ended up taking on that bigger approach that was really a large undertaking. And I don't think we have the capacity and the time to bring that whole thing back this year, just given like everything you guys have coming up, and then the fact that it's already January. And we'd have to have a hearing by July, and there's just so much between now and then. So, but what we could do is we could revisit where we left off and kind of see if there are, like look at it through a different lens. So rather than surgical fixes versus wholesale change, we could look at it like which things are really critical from an economic development standpoint, and like, are we missing opportunities for business growth and business relocation to Reading? And there are certain things we can fix in our use table that would help us be prepared versus like other things that would just be nice to fix at some point, or things that are like super clerical. There's a lot of that, believe me. So, or maybe when we look at it, we think of even like other ways to categorize them, or just something where we can kind of chunk it out and say, this year we're going to do this one piece, and here's why. The other angle we could look at that situation. I mean, one of the reasons we wanted to look at the use table is because in our site plan review thresholds, there's the comment about like the trigger that doesn't get triggered because of the requirement that it be a change of use category to trigger a site plan review. And so that doesn't happen that often because we have this enormous category of businesses that includes everything from restaurants to animal kennels to retail. So one way we can try to get it like not similar, but a different way to correct that problem would be to look at the actual site plan review threshold itself and see if there's a way to reword that so that more things that should be reviewed by you come to you without creating this like floodgate where every single new use that goes into an existing building has to come to you. So try to walk that fine line, I guess. That's really tricky, I think, but we can look at that and see if there might be a way. And then there's more. So I think it was just earlier this year that we kind of became aware that we really need to modify our floodplain overlay district, and that's to line it up with the National Flood Insurance Program requirements. And that's, you know, we're a national flood insurance program town, and so we need to really be in alignment with certain requirements there. And I have to look through them more specifically to see what that looks like, what that means. And I have a lot of information from the state on this, so I just have to really like dig into it. The other thing we might want to do if we do it, work on the floodplain overlay district is look at ways in which the current bylaw is totally constraining development on those properties. And now, like, I almost hate to say this out loud as a planner on TV, but like, I'm a planner in real life, but also on TV tonight, it's like, I get why we don't want development in the floodplain, but I also am aware of creative engineering solutions to allow for proper development in the floodplain that's climate resilient. So that's something to look at, so that the main area where the floodplain overlay district is in town is actually also a priority development area as identified in our economic development action plan. So that's a little bit of a conflict of competing interests there. But there are lots of ways to design around things like that. So I will get off my soapbox and move along. Other things that you guys have talked about, the sign bylaw, that was not deemed a priority last year. It's never going to be perfect. I could go either way on this one. And then the parking bylaw, it's not great. We lump a lot of things into the same categories, which maybe isn't correct from like a right sizing, like what actual parking demand really is standpoint. But areas where we have like ongoing route problems, such as downtown, have different regulations already, like downtown smart growth district. And so that maybe could be addressed through the downtown smart growth district changes. And then there is one key section of the parking bylaw that you could look at, which is the businesses within 300 feet of a municipal lot don't need to provide parking. And I don't know if we've gotten to like a critical mass there where that's not really a viable thing to allow anymore. It's tricky because, we're also working on this other effort of trying to manage our downtown parking system better. And it's like absent that effort, which isn't totally taking off, let's just say, it seems like there might be something we need to do from a zoning standpoint. So that's it. That's all from me. Welcome all your thoughts and feedback.
Well, it is a big list. I have a couple of questions. For the instructional motions, what's your planned time frame? I believe we need to report back at the April town meeting, at least on progress or plans for how we will address them.
Yeah, so my understanding about instructional motions is that the time frames that like are stated in the motion are non-binding, but that, like for the first one, at least, I think it's a worthy conversation to have, and it might result in some really good changes. And so we could, it might take us like longer than, it's definitely going to take us longer than April town meeting. We can do a report like you mentioned. It might even take us longer than November town meeting to really vet the ideas and get the feedback we need and make sure we're, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's the way we want to. But I think just like starting in on the effort is probably good for now.
Okay. Let's see. I know the town council had provided an example or a presentation on short-term rentals, and it may not be this board, it may be the select board, but if there are taxes that we can be getting as of today, shouldn't we somehow get that up and running to start with before we even start with regulations? And my last two thoughts, the usage, the determining whether a site plan is needed, can we tie that in to the cost of a retrofit if we don't want to use the usage? So if you've got a building permit and somebody's going to upgrade it at $100 a square foot, that probably implies that it needs some sort of review. If they're going to retrofit it at $10, what works out to be $10 a square foot, it probably doesn't. I don't know if that's even legally possible.
I don't know, Tony. I don't think that just doesn't seem like a good idea on so many levels.
I think we want to tie the review into whatever externality is happening. So, you know, I could imagine that, you know, a retrofit where, you know, they're not changing the function of the site at all. They're just, you know, making it high end, as compared to someone that doesn't even invest in the property, but changes the use and the function of it dramatically, that has all sorts of, you know, external impacts. So
I feel like you could turn a yoga studio into a rave probably without a lot of money.
True. Just an idea, just a thought.
No, that's good. Right. We got to keep the ideas coming.
Yeah. And the last one is I 100% approve of removing that 300-foot limit exclusion for parking.
Yeah, I agree that that's an issue that needs to be addressed, you know, because it does drive, it touches on so much that we do, and likely some a lot of concerns that will come in the future. So that, you know, us not dealing with that sooner than later is probably going to create more problems than just addressing it. So,
And for the at least the downtown portion, not South Main Street, the downtown portion would be related at least to the discussions that we might be having around 40R. I know it's a different part of the bylaw, but it does seem to be related.
yeah. Nick, Pam, any thought on priorities?
Well, certainly looking at the IM that is there about, oh, I can't move it, about the size of the lot, changing that from 100% to 85. I think that would be a preference. Certainly having lived through all of these big construction projects going in, and they're right up to the line. Right up to the property line. So
yeah, on that one, I guess my concern, the way that the instructional motion was written and passed, is that it bakes together the problem that was discussed with the answer that it was proposed would provide a solution to the problem. I'm personally not convinced that changing from 100% to 85% will result in the things that were discussed at town meeting, like the creation of pocket parks. Left to their own devices, I could actually guarantee you that it wouldn't result in those. And so the concern that I have about the instructional motion is that there was a lot of discussion at town meeting with one side of the discussion and a lot of wishful thinking on what changes would happen. I think that the issue for this board will be sort of pulling all of those issues apart, all those wants and desires and the regulations apart, and getting them back together to result in changes and outcomes that town meeting was actually looking for. and so maybe it's 85%, but maybe it's something else. And so I think that, right, and as Julie mentioned, right, you you push on one end of this and then something else happens, and we need to be very very cognizant of that. You squish it down to 85%, what happens to the value of that 15% that you're now no longer able to develop? So what would have happened there, and it doesn't just go away, right?
Right.
So I think we need to, it seems pretty simple because the instructional motion has the answer right in it. But I think that this is definitely a much longer discussion.
Right.
Can I chime in there just with my general support, John, for what you said? And that's actually why I like the staff recommendation to address the changes holistically. I think we heard a lot at town meeting at what people wanted to get more out of the 40-yard district. And there may be ways that we can look at it with those outcomes in mind, in addition to any kind of changes that this group would make retrospectively after having several of these developments, most of which I wasn't involved with. So I would look to your lessons as well.
I also wanted to just chime in and clarify Pam's comment about them building right up to the lot line. And like with the way that this is worded, like that's not going to change, because if we have to limit them to 85% lot coverage and then also require a pocket park, they're definitely going to build right up to the lot line to be able to accommodate the pocket park somewhere, but I'm not sure the alternative is better, having like a 1 foot strip like between things. Yeah.
Or cement wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Right on the property line.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Now, if the intent is to provide for pocket parks, that's clearly not going to win out.
Right. And so I think.
And I understand that.
Right. I think what really is the issue here is we need to pull this apart to figure out, to actually get more feedback from town meeting members or from the public to really understand what the ultimate drive is here. And because I absolutely appreciate more green in downtown, but that comes at a cost. And where are we putting that cost, right? And I don't mean just money, right? I mean parking or walls or right. There's a lot of things to consider. You don't get just the greenery doesn't just come without displacing something else. So.
Right. And my feeling about trees is every time you take a tree down, you're supposed to replant.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that's happening anywhere.
So I guess my thought is that I think that they're right. I mean, we definitely have to progress on the two instructional motions. I would prefer to take a back seat on the that short-term rentals one, not because I don't think that we have something to some value to add to the discussion. If we were to lead it, I think just the first instructional motion is so big that we can't. We need to take a back seat in the short-term rentals discussion. I think that I also think that we really do need to spend some time, and maybe we can find an elegant solution to dealing with some of the issues with the table of uses. But as Julie noted, right, we spent a lot of time on it before, and maybe we can hone that discussion down so that we're being maybe more surgical and not trying to do everything, which there's nothing wrong with that when we had time when we had the time to do it, but I don't think that we have the same the same time. But I do think there's some things in that table that we really do need to address. I would be up for not doing anything with signs. Although, right, I know Julie and Andrew spend a lot of time on helping people decipher that. Not sure that rises to the top necessarily where we are right now. And then lastly, as Tony mentioned, the 300-foot item, I think that again, I think that we need to have a time to discuss that and how it ties out and whether that's something that we can take on. My gut is that we need to, but right, there's 4 things that are big, and maybe that one can push off some, but maybe there's a quicker answer too. So those are my thoughts.
What about floodplain, John?
Oh, didn't we? It must have been before your time, Julie, Nick, didn't we revise the floodplain overlay district?
I think right before I started.
Was it?
Yeah, we updated the maps fairly recently because the FEMA maps were updated.
I think it was 2015.
And then we did change some of
aquifer.
We changed some of the terminology about how, what could be developed within, portion of if a parcel just was within the overlay district or a portion, and allowed different things. So we did loosen that up some, so that the overlay district would provide the same function, but like you said, Julie, making use of some improvements, engineering.
Are you thinking of the aquifer district? Because
maybe that was it.
Yeah, in the aquifer district, we changed that.
Yeah.
If it's just touching the corner of the lot, that's the part you have to fix. And then we also deleted.
I'm thinking the two. I'm linking the two together: floodplain and aquifer. So.
Yeah, and we also didn't we get rid of our wetlands rules and just said we comply with the state's wetland rules. So we made it streamlined it, I guess, and we simplified some things. Floodplain, you guys are going to have to do the work, and engineering is going to have to support that, because we're certainly not going to do all the research on what the impacts are. We can look at what you're proposing, I think, and see how it impacts development.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something where like CONSCOM would be involved. I mean, when I was in Concord and we had a floodplain overlay bylaw that allowed a lot more than the one in Reading, it was an application that would come to the planning board there, as well as the Natural Resources Commission. And the Natural Resources Commission would be the one that would do the math on the 2-to-1 flood storage and the flow through and all this stuff. And then so the planning board would review it as well, but it was like the two of them working together.
Is our floodplain actually impacted by sea level change, or is it just that it's such a low spot and development is sort of driving more, surcharge to it? How far below the floodplain line are we? Are we 7 feet below or 2 feet below? That's a big difference on whether your first floor is 8 feet up or 10 feet up, Like City of Boston's development requirements are pretty rough, but they're right on the water. And they get a different impact than we do.
I'd have to look at that's a really good question. I actually don't know the answer to it. I could figure it out.
And I guess I'm wondering, would this body of work be informed at all by the MVP study that was done, or is this strictly by where the current flood insurance maps are?
That's another good question. I think it would defer to the flood insurance maps, but I can confirm that.
Well, taking a sort of page out of the both the aquifer protection and some of the our wetlands zoning that we had in place in the past, right? What Reading did in the past was I think we were a little bit in front of the curve. And so, in the past, I'm talking about, 20, 30 years ago, where we put different districts in, different zoning in before the state caught up or the federal government caught up. And it certainly, the state and the feds caught up with us on the, aquifer protection and on wetlands protection. And I'm just wondering, to the point where, right, we could sort of loosen our control over those, and because the state finally came to us where we wanted to be. And I guess not knowing enough about this, is this the same situation where are they coming to, have their regulations, National Floodplain with the model bylaw, have they come to where we want to be anyways?
That's a really good question. I'd have to look. Like I mentioned, I haven't really delved into too much. Yeah, I'll have to look.
Because that, right, when that's the case, it ends up being a pretty, I don't want to say simple, nothing simple, but not a very, not all that torturous of a process.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we allow right now in our floodplain overlay district by right is municipal recreation, public water supply, drainage, or flood control use, an orchard, truck garden, nursery, or similar open use of the land for the raising of agricultural or horticultural crops, for rifle, pistol, and shotgun shooting on land of any established range. So in some ways, I totally love that. Other ways, it's just a little bit tricky, given that it's also labeled a priority development area by MAPC and others. So, and the uses that are some of the uses that are now are just kind of stuck. Like there were some pre-existing buildings and stuff there that are just kind of stuck. And maybe that's fine. Like maybe, we're in a better place given climate change and all that. So I don't know. I'm conflicted.
I mean, it sounds to me like it would be good to take a look at. That said, I kind of fall into the camp of, this is a lot of work, and I personally put 40R right up to the top. Largely, I think we'll get a lot of community input to 40R. It's a ripe one to do and to take a look at, and hopefully then we don't have to revisit it again for a while.
Well, can't we do this floodplain one in the background, I guess, without a deadline necessarily, like not to hit a town meeting deadline? Start collecting information and just have discussions from time to time about what we've found.
Yeah, because I think for all of us, right, the floodplain one will be sort of an education on where, how big of an effort, what would this change? Is it something we really want to do? Right, I don't think we have as clear of a path on where we want to end up as I I think in some of these other ones, it's pretty clear what the goals, or what at least the conflicting goals are. This one has, there's a lot to be sort of learned here. So.
Great, yeah.
Progressing it, but not pushing it.
Yep.
I like that idea.
Okay. All right, so it seems like just are you guys still seeing the document on the screen share?
Yep.
Okay. For some reason I don't have it on my screen anymore, so I don't know where it went. Okay, so I think it sounds like you mostly agree with staff recommendations, with 40R being the priority, floodplain in the background, and then we'll take a look at the use table and see if there can be a simple way we could tackle something there. And then we'll leave the sign and parking issue for maybe a little bit down the road. Does that sound good? Well, parking might be part of, and we might address parking as part of the 40R, at least for the downtown.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think that's all that I have. Andrew, do you have anything?
No, I think we quickly discussed today that the MVP does allow for action grants to be used for subdivision regulation updates. So that could always be a potential future use and goal that we might have. And I like how Nick's screen is black and white, and I'm wondering how I can do the same.
Like that too.
Well, I was thinking the MVP grant potentially could help us with the floodplain bylaw.
Certainly could as well.
Yeah, so something to think about. We don't have a grant yet, we'd have to apply, but
right,
it can help us kind of modify subdivision.
You're muted, Heather.
Sorry, I was just wondering what's the time frame for application?
I believe action grants open in the spring of 2021 and maybe again in the fall of 2021.
Well, it seems like
the
it would
size
be
of
good to make that up, to make use of that opportunity.
Yeah. Do you remember the size of the grants, Andrew?
I don't remember the maximum award. It's upwards of like $2 million, I believe.
Pretty fancy floodplain bylaw.
Yeah.
Great.
And we can submit more than one action grant a year if they were separate yet somewhat combined.
Cool. Do you guys have any questions or back for us? All right.
All right.
What's on the agenda for the next meeting?
Yeah, so January 25th. I know it was scheduled as a tentative date, but
right,
they're all needed. So don't go anywhere. Don't go on vacation somewhere fun.
Right.
So we have the animal clinic at 7:30.
I think we're actually expecting a further continuance on that to February.
Oh.
Based off an email today.
Okay. So we have Bagel World supposed to come back as well. And that's it for right now that we can say out loud on TV.
Okay.
All right. Great. So 10:45, maybe we can end it right here before it gets too late.
This is good. Oh, could I move that we adjourn?
You can.
May.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, 5-0.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good
Have a
night.
good
Good
night.
evening.
Good
Bye.
night.
Night.
See you in a couple weeks.
Yep.
Have a good one, Andrew.
You too, Julie. See you tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.